Well, that was ridiculous. See if I could hear anything. It's a new mic. Oh, yeah. I can't hear a damn thing. What about you guys? Let me know when you are watching. If you want to hit me up in chat, let me know. I'll give you a sticker. Can you even see that? Yay. Looks good. Sounds good. Awesome. What's up, Kareem? How you doing, brother? So I guess I don't need these because I can't hear anything anyway. But I'm going to wait a second and watch anybody come in. So we got a few people. Where are you guys watching from? Kareem, where are you from, man? I forgot. Is it Texas? I always forget. Houston. So I bought this mic from some stoner yesterday in town. And right as I did it, he said that there's the little shock mount, the little thing that keeps it from picking up any vibrations. So if I'm doing that, it's not table shaking. It doesn't shake the mic. And he's like, hey, I got the spider arm and like the XLR cable. Do you want it? I'm like, yeah, stoner, let's go. Let's get this thing. So yeah, that's what you're looking at here, hanging right in front of my face. I have no idea how to do all of this stuff, but we'll see. All right, so we've got Houston, we've got Florence. Got it. Sean Thompson, what's up, sir? And then we've got Bangladesh. That is super dope, man. I love when people hit me up from like spots that are just far off from what I'm used to, but cool. Well, I'm gonna let a couple more people roll in, but for you guys that are watching this, whether live like Kareem or anybody that's watching the replay, I am super excited because audio is happening for sure. Got the podcast started, so we're gonna have two different series, the Lightsman podcast and the FlyRyde podcast. I recorded the first one yesterday with my boy from Eliminate, which is Randy. Super, super dope. Got to hear his backstory and all that. And, and Sean Thompson says, OG Lightsman. Yeah, so the Lightsman podcast is going to be, man, I'm super excited about that because you get to hear about the backstory of, FlyRyde, yeah, but I'll always talk about the backstory of FlyRyde and kind of talk about the goods and the bads and all of my story. But hearing it from other people, it's super cool, especially like yesterday with Randy, hearing about the backstory of a YouTuber and like where it came from. And, just, I don't know, everything that kind of came along with starting something big and running with it. That was dope. So excited about that. And for my Lightsman guys, you're going to just get all the raw audio as it comes out. So there's also a new thing that's going to happen here on YouTube, where if you're seeing it on some of the channels, the sponsors, people that are that you're used to seeing, are able to get a sponsor button. So that's it. All right, I'm gonna dive in and keep letting me know where you guys are coming from, and hit that like button as soon as you get a chance. I am gonna talk about lights and about, imagine that. I'm gonna talk about lights. Me doing that? That's crazy. No, I'm gonna talk about inside the lights. So we've got taillights that we modify all the time. Specifically the GTRs, the WRX, the Genesis Coupe, and now we're getting a lot more requests and just people hitting me up about things like the FRS BRZ taillights. So randomly, out of the blue, I decided the other day that I was going to, have you seen these things? The version 1 Valenti BRZ taillight. I just wanted to see what would happen if I chopped the lens off. And I even managed to chop my leg and slice a good little hole through some nice jeans in my thigh. So yeah, obviously it's slightly dangerous. But what I wanted to see was the back side. So if you look, this is what you would normally see on the back of the taillight. And then once I took this out of the lens, we have all these different components. So let me kind of throw them in here for you. And then I will explain you what you're looking at and what it is that we're going to actually want to do to modify these different kinds of parts. So we've got the internal part that glows, and then we've got some little circuit boards that basically light that part up. So that's kind of what I saw when I opened up the back of the taillight. And people ask all the time, hey, I've got these Valenti taillights and I spent like $200-300 on them, and I've got an LED that's out. So like let's pretend that like that LED's out right there. Don't hit somebody up to do custom fixing, because the amount of time it takes just to get to the point where you can even access that LED, slice everything open, remove all the parts. Like, let's say it was one of these, right? So I cut the whole taillight open and now I have access to these LEDs. Like, I'm going to get in there and remove, like unsolder. Those things it's not too bad to unsolder those, but you could replace those if you've got LEDs that are out. So not the end of the day. Or not the end of the world, I mean. But yeah, it's not worth it. I mean, the cost in going custom just to get it back how it was, as opposed to like getting another aftermarket set right out of a box. Like, it's not like somebody had to make it, you know what I mean? Like China made it or Taiwan made it, whatever. What up, Jordan? What's going down? I have not seen your email today, but I'll check into it. So if you're looking at doing something custom and really changing things up and going sequential and all of that, accessing these LEDs is kind of the first step. But more importantly, it's being able to get your hands on these circuit boards and then sending them off. Because what's going to happen is you'll start with a part like this that doesn't do anything cool. And then you're going to end up with something like these WRX lights that I think Jack stole off my desk, so I'm not going to be able to show you those like I intended. So I'll show you the Genesis Coupe ones, and then I'll get Jack to bring those things back in here. I think that was, you know, when you do things live and you can't really help but show what really happened. So this is the internal part of a Genesis Coupe taillight. Some of my guys and lightsmen really want to know how to get in and make each one of these LEDs fire and turn on one by one and control it with the ghost sequencer. So the thing is, on a board like this, if you see, there's no circuit board. This is the internal part of the taillight that makes it do all of the red LED. But each one of those things is on a little ribbon. So if you want to access that LED, you not only have to look at this whole thing and kind of understand how all the traces work. Let me unplug that. Got to get in there and follow all of those circuits. And that's kind of hard to do, right? So my kind of commitment to you guys is, as I find out how to do all of these different little steps, I'm going to make this information available both on the YouTube channel and on Lightsman, so that I can kind of keep showing how to save yourself the trouble of ruining a part like this. You can't get another one of these. People ask me on the GTRs all the time, can I just replace that one little part from inside the headlight? It's like, yeah, if you get a brand new headlight to get that part. So it doesn't really make sense. You can't just hit up Nissan or Hyundai or, you know, whoever and just be like, hey, can I buy that one tiny little part that's assembled overseas in some random factory that I'll never have access to, and just get one of their parts that goes inside a taillight assembly? Like, they're going to say no. So anyway, I don't want you to ruin parts, but I also, I know that I've had a lot of experience with these things and I have extras, so I'm able to ruin them so that you don't have to. So this is going to be one of the big how-to videos. This is going to be the advanced how-to sequential lighting videos. The Genesis Coupe, how to individually control all the OEM LEDs on this, and then also how to repurpose this little upper section. Let me pick up the thing I just knocked on the floor like an asshole. All right, so here is what was sitting on the desk. Now this is the part that sits inside of the Genesis Coupe taillight, and I'm going to talk about a completely different type of taillight in a second here. But these are taillights where when you cut open the lens, you have access to all the internal pieces that remove out of the light. Some kinds of lights, there is no inside portion. It's basically the lens is melted to the main section. So basically, like, the lens would be on this, and this would be the back of the taillight. And like, that's what you get. If you slice off the lens, like, you have access to in here, but there's no new access that you get. On a Genesis Coupe, a WRX, a FRS, a lot of the more popular lights, GTR obviously, you know, once you cut open the taillight, you get access to all these cool little parts that are hidden inside. So in any case, if you can imagine that in this Genesis Coupe taillight, that when you hit the turn signal, that it starts right here and zips all the way across and up. So I'm talking to a guy right now who's actually in UAE, like Dubai area, you know, and actually Oman. And he wants to get this setup. He wants black Genesis Coupe taillights that have sequential. And in my old videos, you can see all the individual little LEDs that we run along this area right here. That was just because I didn't have access. I didn't know how to modify these things. Now that we do, it's going to be way cleaner to give you all those cool functions using the OEM LEDs. So like same thing with any of the lights that we're going to do for TJ Hunt and a lot of the guys with the FRS and BRZ. We're not just going to hand make a bunch of little circuit boards. We're sending those parts out exactly like this. Send this part out, say this is the exact shape and setting of the circuit boards that they need to be, except instead of having them where they all come on at once using the circuits like this is, we have the placement of the LED so they can scan this part, and then we know exactly where each LED needs to be, where each hole needs to be for screwing it back on, but we get to redesign the whole circuit board function. So if we want to plug in a sequencer to this, then that means that you can cut open those taillights, just take this one part out, and then put it back together, hook it up to your sequencer, and you look like a magician, and you haven't actually done much more than cut some plastic and unscrew some screws. That's dope. That's the dream. That's the dream for me, and I've been doing this stuff for 15 years. So, you know, obviously, the more and more we do on that stuff, then the better. Any questions so far? You guys got to hit me up with questions as we go. So definitely appreciate when you ask something. Generally, there's 5, 10 more, 100 other guys that have that same question. So as I answer those things, it helps other people. So definitely don't hold back. Otherwise, I'll just keep yapping the whole time and it'll be ridiculous. So Victoria Garcia says, what type of car do I work on? GTR, mainly. Kareem asks, oh, snap. Yeah, that's cool. 3D scan. How am I repinning the boards? So basically, you just tell the engineer that's going to work on the circuit boards how you want them to function. So same way with pretty much any car. It's not specific to one type. It's just here's the things that can't change. Like here's the LEDs right here, the little bolt holes right there. The shape has to be this exact thing. But if you want to have the custom options of being able to control all those LEDs, that's when you say, I need all of these connections to have the same power hookup. So 12 volts hits every LED same way, but then you want to have each individual ground isolated with its own little circuit path that runs through to a little hole. If you have like a pass-through hole, you can solder a wire to it. You can put a pin in it. You can do a few different ways of connecting that to your Ghost sequencer. And so that's the fun, easy way. The hard way is custom, doing it by hand. There's nobody that's going to print me a circuit board that has all these little steps in it. I mean, not within reason. Maybe this will change, and in the future, you'll be able to get a cheap aftermarket board that just swaps into this thing. That would be ideal. Doesn't exist right now, so I wouldn't hold my breath waiting for it. But let me show you a completely different type of taillight. And then after I finish showing you these things, I'm going to run out and grab that part and see what Jack's working on. But it's basically the WRX taillight. So the only thing I have left of it right here is a lens. And this is actually kind of has to do with what I'll show you next. So when we cut open the WRX taillight, we have this main lens on it. And then inside, there's a section that we can remove, and then we can change the circuit boards just like I showed you on the Genesis Coupe. But this is a set from Depot. They asked me to cut into this thing. Now, originally, when this thing was made, it was supposed to have this section left clear so that you could put a red bulb in here, and then this is going to be red, and that's all, you know, everything's red. Got it? But they put a little amber cover over where the bulb goes. So they said, if there's any way that I can get in there and chop that section out so I can remove that amber piece. And what I realized off the bat was if I make a cut on the back side of this thing, unlike those WRX or Genesis Coupe taillights, you'll see that cut because the plastic itself right here is the same as the plastic that you can see inside. So what I had to do is cut the whole lens off, right? And that's not easy because if you look anywhere along that perimeter that I cut with the blade, there's one section I can show you and point out a flaw. This is basically like a screw up. I can't even find. Okay, there it is. So look right there. See how you can see that little slit mark just on the inside? It's because my blade was too far inward, right? So I had to bring it back and then just slice right on this very, very edge. And so if you can imagine, if I did that along the bottom here, anywhere right there, you'd see this big, ugly cut mark when you put the lens back on. And so that's what you don't want to do with any of these lights, like the 350Zs the same way. If you cut a big, ugly line, you'll be able to see it through the lens. As you could tell, you can't see any big, ugly cut mark, which is super not easy to do. So you got to take your time and make sure that you're following the proper cut line to do it. But in any case, this is a completely different beast. And the crappy thing for me is that I realized the lights I'm doing for Dustin Williams Evo 8, same thing. Basically, if you look, there's my finger, right? So there's a piece of plastic, and it's the same piece. So if I cut through this, you'll see it on this side. That sucks. That definitely makes things much more difficult because all of your work has to be flawless. So let me see what you're saying. Kareem, is that a permaseal? Yeah. So it's not even permaseal. Here's a great question from Kareem. I love that he asked this. So all of these taillights that I've showed you right now, you cannot bake them. Putting them in the oven doesn't do any good, and I'll show you why. On the light that I just showed you, which is an Acura TL, by the way, I think, or is it TSX? It's a T something, and it's an Acura. All right, so you see all that gray plastic that's on there? And then you see that weird little line right there, and see that gnarly fingernail? That line, if you look, ooh, that is what's called an ultrasonic weld, which means that when this thing was made in the factory, you had this back part, right? Sorry. You had the back part. Then once this part was molded and made out of this gray plastic, then they stuck it into a special chamber that only allows for the front half of it to be what they call vacuum metallized. So this is not chrome. Everybody says that it's chrome, and that's okay. It's just whatever. It's semantics. But basically, the shiny stuff is aluminum. And the way that it gets on there is it goes into a special chamber, and then a little filament, kind of like inside a light bulb, a little strand of aluminum is in there, and it gets vaporized, which means it turns into a shit ton of little droplets in the air, and it gets sucked on. It gets vacuumed onto this plastic part. So that's why this is all one piece. There's no different sections that I can remove to get the chrome off. That's basically paint, if you want to put it simple. So that aluminum metallized coating over that is on that side. And then once that process is finished, then they take a separate piece that they've made using the, I guess, plastic injection molding or whatever it is to cast this actual part with the clear part and all of that stuff in there. It's a separate piece. Then it's going to go into a machine that's going to clamp it down. And then all along the edges right here, it has probably something that looks like a sleeve that goes over this whole thing, and it pushes the two together and it shakes it. It ultrasonic shakes it. And so that vibration is creating a weld. So it's literally melted shut all the way along here, which is also another reason why aftermarket taillights are going to be prone to leaks and stuff like that, because their inspection and their R&D and all of that stuff is not going to be nearly as on point as somebody who is an OEM car maker. Because you can imagine, if an OEM guy screws up, they can't sell a car. If an aftermarket company screws up, they just are going to have more returns. You know what I mean? Like literally nothing bad is going to happen besides they'll make less money. The OEM has a problem. They have a recall. They have safety issues. They get sued. Like there's big, big repercussions for that. So if you have, for example, this fancy pants Stanley, which is an OEM company that makes all the parts. So this is like, it says right there, Stanley. If you look at the ultrasonic weld on that, it's perfect. It is on point. There's no imperfections, anything like that. And so if water runs over the top of these lights, it's not going to seep down inside and create condensation. And even then, these OEMs, like, they still do, they're not perfect either. They're as close as you can get. But in any case, what sucks is I have to cut this light open and leave zero trace of doing so. And you are, man, like, it's not like the other ones. It's like that last one right there. I'm gonna have to cut perfectly around that perimeter. And there's guys that have done this. They'll say, well, like with a hot knife or whatever. It's basically a soldering iron with a sharp tip, and they'll kind of come along and try to cut it open that way. You're just gonna melt stuff and make a big giant mess. So one of the investments I'm making back into the company right now is just like the ultrasonic welder that pushes the two things together. We're going to get an ultrasonic cutter, which is, we already have one. It's just little. It's made for like little plastic Japanese model maker guys. It's some Japanese part. We're going to get the big dog ultrasonic cutter. It's about $1,500 to buy the part itself, and then it cuts through plastic like butter. And so that is basically like the exact opposite. It's like the yin to the yang of the ultrasonic welder. The ultrasonic cutter uses vibration to cut back through plastic. So that's going to be something that I'll be showing you about a lot more, because it makes way less mess. It's faster. And if we make no mess like we do with a saw, like I'll cut these things open with the saw, possibly. I did those other ones. You lose material. It cuts it away and turns it into dust, and it throws that dust everywhere. So when you're cutting into taillights, the Genesis Coupe, anything like that, and the WRX, as you're cutting, it's creating all this plastic, kickback and dust that's hitting you in the face and the neck and the arms and stuff, which is why I always have to cover up or wear a face mask. But it also is throwing it inside the taillights. So something to think about when you're figuring how long you're going to take on something is, if you're planning on keeping it chrome and it's kicking a bunch of little black plastic dust in there, might be super hard to get it all super clean. Sorry. So with these, I may have to wait until I get the ultrasonic cutter next week to do those. But it's also going to mean that we do a bunch of other lights that I haven't done a lot of in the past, because I didn't have a kick-ass cutting tool that would do the job the way I want it to be done. And so, yeah, that's going to be coming up, a lot more of cutting. And Sean asked, so how do you put them back together? It's basically a very similar way that they actually seal them with the ultrasonic welder. It's just we're melting different little tabs. So like in this case, if I had this thing cut off, this lens, then I would do like a little melted section right here, just a couple of them, and then we'll run over with that hardcore Permatex sealant that we talk about, and just run a nice little bead of it over, and it'll basically be held in place by melted plastic, but then it'll be sealed and even more strengthened by that Permatex sealant. So super nasty stuff to mess with, but it is so good. It's so strong. So definitely into that. Questions so far? We're talking about ultrasonic stuff, one-piece taillight. This is what I would consider kind of like I don't know. We call this like unibody. It's like it doesn't have internals. So taillights without internals, taillights with internals. That was the other one. So let me see if Jack has those WRX parts really quick. I think he's soldering them up. So what we have is the Modified Technologies circuit boards. Those install into the bezel. So when you look at it, it's basically got, you're seeing right through this into the circuit board, and then the circuit board. Ooh, this is actually a good idea. What if we have Modified Technologies make a circuit board for this that just goes right over that, just like it does on the WRX? Let's think about that. We'll hit them up. That might be a good way to go, because if you look at the WRX light that I'm going to show you in just a second, if you don't leave, but you might, then you'll get it. It's a circuit board that just drops right into place. So intermission. All right, boys. 7 of you still with me? So check this out. If you look at this part, this is inside the WRX tail light, right? It has a very similar look to that, right? You can see where all the little LEDs shine through, and on the back side, it's the same deal. So this is how Modified Technologies has it set up. This is their circuit board. It's just flat, super easy to work with. It's got all of the individual little connections that you need to hook it up right there. So those little guys right there, if you hook wires to them, it will control certain sections of the LEDs. So then when you go to install it, it's got those wires running out. You set it in place and blam, you're in business. You know, like you don't have to customize any circuit board or anything like that because it already fits into place. Super cool part. 2 new videos coming out about these. We have our version of them, and then we have the way that they come pre-wired from Modified Technologies. As you can tell, these parts, they're not wired to anything. That's how we like them, because then we get to control how they're set up. So this is one side, and then they also have a sequential reverse panel, and that's the other side. So you can kind of see inside, you could have 2 LED bulbs on this one, and instead of having LED bulbs, you've got that big panel there. And you could even have just the reverse panel that's sequential and the factory LEDs left in place, blacked out like that. You don't have to do both if you choose to get the inner panel, but they are both sequential ready, which means if you buy the raw parts, you can install everything yourself. Subi Speed has a pretty, I don't know, it's a little bit helpful video that shows how people can cut open the taillights and all that. We got like down and gritty, and like the camera's getting plastic flicked up on it as we're cutting open and showing the exact cut lines on these taillights. It's probably about the best type of taillight to learn advanced taillight work on, because you cut it open, it doesn't fight you. The Genesis Coupe is terrible. Like that's the 2013 and newer Genesis Coupe is just about one of the hardest taillights you can work on. But in this case, I'll just show you a little closer on that. So these parts are a multi-part taillight where you can just remove everything and you can see all those little circuits. So when you have something made, like the question earlier, when you redesign something, in this case, they just went nuts and decided where everything was going to go themselves. But if there was an existing OEM LED board that was going to be made into sequential, then all those little squiggle lines that you can see there, those are what allow you to have LEDs hooked up into different groups. Just show you this one. All right, so there's a bunch of little circuits that you can see the resistors for. See all those little lines? Those are basically wires inside of this printed circuit board. So if you don't know anything about circuit boards, that might sound interesting. If you do, you probably think I'm making it sound too basic, but what up, Brett? Is that Brett with the GTR? I'm glad to see you here, man. And let's see. Moritz, so cool to do the live streams, even if there aren't many viewers. Yeah, I will, man. The live streams for me, I think, are great practice, especially like as I get new gear and stuff like that, just learning how to work with the different equipment. And like, I don't know, it's all good. The more and more you do this stuff, like I hope to look back and be like, man, I sucked back in the day, but whatever. As long as it's helpful to anybody, then this stuff will just keep coming out. So the viewers are super appreciated. I don't care if it's 6 or 6,000. It's always a big thing, especially my Lightsman guys. My Lightsman OGs, you guys that are watching this, freaking rock. You guys are what are going to allow for all the crazy changes. There's such big changes coming up. I don't even want to talk about it. I'll get all weird and excited. So, yeah, I think that's pretty much it as far as these different types of parts. You can tell, again, this is what we started with. So this is an FRS taillight. And so now that I've showed you all the other stuff, imagine that when you look at the back here, that the circuit board that was on there, that we just swap another one on there. And then this whole section right here will do sequential, and it'll do strobe, and it'll be all, you know, do all sorts of crazy stuff. Or in the case of somebody that wants to have, like if you're in the UK and you want to have all red right here, and then you want to have amber for turn signal because you have to by law, then in that case, you can do all of the same stuff. Matter of fact, you could even have it to where you had two different types of LEDs, or like a red and amber LED, and it will be red, and when you hit the turn signal, red shuts off and it shines amber, and amber, oddly enough, will pass through red lenses, which means that if I were to have amber glowing on here, you'd be able to see it. If it was blue, you wouldn't be able to see it. Wavelengths and plastic and all that stuff are weird, but that's the beauty of taking apart a set of lights and changing the circuit board with the LEDs, is now you can make it do things that there's no way it would have ever done before. Now, in this case, we've got a red reflector, super important because you need to have reflection bouncing back at the people behind you. So we wouldn't change something like that, but in the case that it's like a full clear, clear lens housing, all of this black chrome stuff can be painted. If you take off all the circuit boards, take off all the stuff in the back, you can put the little unicorn colored chasing stuff. If there's a drop-in part for that, I've seen those, but that just looks cool. Like, look at that shape. Like, to me, I'm into that. That's some nerd stuff. And then there are the circuit boards. So oddly enough, if you look at those LEDs, those are like silly little 5mm LEDs. These are what I used in 2003 to make my own angel eyes back in the day. So if you wonder why the LED on the back of these don't, like, that they're not super bright, it's because they're old. They're old as dirt. Like, this is just ancient technology to make this stuff kind of come together on these FRS tails. And this is Valenti version 1, I guess. So if you're looking at other new stuff, maybe they're using better stuff. I don't know. It could be. But I was just asked yesterday, hey, I have Valenti version 1 taillights. Can I send them to you and you change one of those LEDs out? No, definitely not. That would not be a time-effective way of helping anybody. That would cost hundreds of dollars and look exactly the same as it used to. So Brett is encouraging me as well. Keep the live streams going. Cool. Well, I am glad that I was able to help with the depot headlights for you, Brett. And man, I'm looking forward to it. So if you want to help me big time, Brett, when you get those Valenti headlights, or I'm sorry, depot headlights, shoot those pictures and videos. I'll use them in the ads. I'll use them to help other guys just like yourself with the older GTRs that want them to look brand spanking new. And I'm more than happy to post up, hey, check out Brett's car. It's cool. Jordan says, I'm hoping with the assistance of Lightsman course, I can modify my current LED lights. Yeah, for sure. Jordan, it's going to be a no-brainer. These types of projects, what I want to see happen, now that I can just kind of rant a little bit, is I want to see people come together as a group and allow parts to get made that there's no way one guy is going to do it. For me, for example, like if I want to do anything on the GTR, I have to fork out thousands of dollars and then hope that I picked the right guy for manufacturing those parts. And if I didn't choose the right guy, then that dude's going to let me drown if anything isn't right, because, like, some people just don't have to go above and beyond. If I take it to somebody who's a guaranteed, like, not going to, they're going to be perfect every time, I'm probably going to pay out the nose for that. So because I have some pretty cool, just connections in the lighting business, I've had a lot of guys with GTRs own companies in China. I know some of the owners of the biggest LED aftermarket companies here in the States. And between all of those guys, we're able to get parts put into production without the pitfalls of just taking a risk on a smaller company and then the part not working out and you're stuck with it, So I'll tell you, I don't recommend doing it that way. I do recommend working with bigger companies so that you can, kind of be in good hands from the get, as opposed to being kind of a pioneer and catching arrows in the ass. I could tell you, arrows in the ass is what I'm used to, and it sucks. It's not so fun. But as a group, as the Lightsmen, as coming together as guys that want to find options or universal parts that will work together. I've talked with my guys about a new product that's coming out. I'm not going to mention too much about it right now, but it's a product that's going to be universal, and it will allow people to do these kinds of designs without having to have a purpose-built circuit board. You'll be able to take different components and piece them together to do different shapes and to connect with the Ghost sequencer, so you can program it on the computer, design hardware by hand, and just lay everything in place. Oh, I need a 45-degree angle instead of curve. Cool, you got that 45 angle. It's got the LEDs on there. It's got the connections on there. Everything plugs together, and you look like you've created a masterpiece, and you basically stacked some Legos together and plugged it in. That's coming. I'm pumped on that. Kareem, you say you want to get depot LEDs for the GS to modify? I will help you. Our guys at USR are awesome. So just so people know, something I haven't mentioned, even to my Lightsman guys, my OGs, is if you are in the Lightsman group, then you have direct access to light fixtures, light housings, and not even through me, directly through my supplier is going to give you my deal. And so that was something I kind of sat down in a couple different meetings with them and said, I want my guys to have access to all this stuff, and I don't want to be the bottleneck that slows them down. So can you hook them up? Can you get them a promotion code or something so that they can just start buying the products direct from you guys? You'll see way more traffic that's coming from me, but instead of it being like, I'm the bottleneck that slows everything down. Dude, if we got 100 guys that are ordering lights from them, they will have 100 orders coming in that I have nothing to do with besides they're part of my group. And so they get that kickback. And then, you know, these guys that are seeing the money and the income generated from my group will obviously open doors and work with us that much more. So USR are the guys that are making that happen. So huge shout out to Kevin over there. Kevin, you're the man. And Thomas, thank you guys for dealing with me as I slowly piece together this whole crazy community. And then my Lightsman, thank you guys for getting on board and helping me design this awesome course. For people that don't know what the hell I'm talking about, we have an online course now, lightsman.com, and you'll be able to sign up there. And as the course is developing, we are going to make different courses available. So the sequential section is wrapping up now, and I'm actually filming the retrofit section. And then there's a lot of basics that I'm going to go back to and introduce. And as each one of those modules, as it comes together, I will make that a standalone a la mode thing that you can order just its own little section. So if you want to learn just retrofitting or you want to learn just sequential, cool. You'll be able to buy that course and take that course. It costs me money to do it, which means it's going to cost you to take it. And it will be not on YouTube, not on like a like all over the place schedule. It's like a straight up walk you through start to finish. So what you can expect is to take a course and leave that course, finish it with all the tools that you need and everything that you need to reflect back to and learn so that you can do exactly what you want. You could be building lights. You can fix up your lights, start offering service to somebody else, and you'll have taken the right steps without the shortcuts or without just, I don't know, screwing up like I have 8 million times. And that's how you learned. Learning that way is effective and slow and expensive. So I figured the courses will help a lot. If you want to take the whole thing and just have access to a ton of information, like printable guides and all sorts of stuff like that, that'll help you just kind of grow your skills and your strength with the lighting stuff to give you the confidence to go out there and start a company, that's where I would suggest taking the whole course, which will just include a whole lot more than if you were to buy them all piece by piece and do, let's say you buy a sequencer and you want to take the Ghost like sequence part of the course, that makes sense. But if you're like trying to like, hey, I want to hook up my lights and start a whole company and like do this stuff because it looks cool and I think I'd like doing it instead of, you know, working a terrible job, then like, you know, learn how to make money doing the whole thing. And it's whatever works best for you. So certainly no push, no pressure, because it's going to be free on YouTube. A lot of that content I will trickle out to you guys as well, just to people that are interested about learning. So plug over. I'm done talking about the course and all that stuff. So I'm open for some Q&A before I go. We're at 40 minutes right now. So how's the mic sound? Is it weird when I walk away? Is it hear a bunch of background noise or anything? Or Did it work out okay? Can you hear me slurping my coffee? Cool. Good. Thank you, Stoner. You're the man. Coming through. Loving it. So what are topics that you guys would like to see me do more live streams on, so I'm not just yapping? I want to give value up front. And today I had enough people asking about taillights, and we've got taillights that are just kind of becoming like front of the pack things that I'm focused on right now. So I want to talk about them. But anything that you guys want me to focus on these live streams, I'd like to do about 2 a week. So, definitely I always do my How Tuesday videos, and I would like to always do a Friday video. But you guys tell me if you're interested in more of the LED work, or a lot of times guys are, I don't know. I don't think that the retrofits are a great thing to do because it's so hardcore. Ooh, good feedback, Kareem. So I can actually adjust that here. So if I get like super pumped, I'll watch this later when I have 40 minutes of downtime. But if I'm getting pumped and it's peaking out, I can actually set the thresholds on my equipment so that it doesn't make your ears bleed. So that is good. Video wise, I think I just have to get a new machine that can handle the DSLR, because this is just a MacBook Pro camera. So that little thing right there is not nearly as high quality as the DSLR, but there's no lag. So, all right, boys. I think that is going to do it for today. Expect a nice little Lightsman update inside the group, and that will be just kind of talking about what I shot. And I won't forget your email, Jordan. No worries. So, Moritz, you'd like to see me opening those a-hole lights? Are you talking about the Evo? Yeah, they're going to suck. So I have actually recorded all of this stuff that I showed you. We recorded it. So you'll get to see that on the channel. So cool. Yeah, so the lighting today, I wanted you guys to be able to see stuff. I'll just keep playing around with stuff, but totally crazy stuff is going to change up as far as where the live streams are at, how I'm doing those. It'll all be coming together good. So anyway, I will catch you guys on another live stream. Thank you all for joining me from around the world. And for my Lightsmen, you guys rock. Thank you for being there for me and helping me kick this whole thing off. So good stuff coming. Anyway, thank you guys. Have a kick-ass day and enjoy your weekend. Be safe out there. And I will see you next week. Later.